Not yet.
There we go.
There you go.
Hey, quick mic check. Can anybody see and hear me? So I see the chat's already kicking off over there. Somebody let me know. Or if you can't hear me, it's really quiet.
We got crickets, man. We got crickets.
I think there's usually a little bit of a delayed reaction on these.
Yeah. Okay, We're cool. Good. William Hanson,
thank you, Roman. Hey, I wanted to, I guess, not introduce myself. Most of you guys know who I am. I'm Cam with Blacktail Studio. This is kind of our mini business builder workshop. And instead of me just asking myself a bunch of questions, I asked my friend Adam here, who has a pretty extensive business background, if he could kind of MC this. So he has a bunch of pre-written questions, some that he got from you guys. We'd also love questions from you during this. So Adam's going to MC it. Love to have questions, but there's probably going to be a Q&A time. Is that right, Adam?
Yeah. So I'll just speak into that if you want me to just jump into that.
Anyway, everybody, this is Adam Price. He's been pretty big in the maker community, and he helps me out with a ton of the marketing, a ton of the business side of stuff. And again, he's going to MC this and handle the questions, and I'll handle the answers.
Good. So we're going to rely on you, Cam, for your expertise, and I'm just going to be kind of instead of MC, let's go with quarterback, just because of the time of year.
You're Canadian. You probably think that's a soccer position.
No, dude. I'm a huge NFL fan, so I am Canadian. Like you said, my name is Adam Price, and kind of how we're going to unpack this. We got about 45 minutes here. Thank you all for joining us. There's already been a couple comments that this isn't, there's maybe 50 or so people live with us, and that's what we wanted. It's a group inside the epoxy workshop course. This is value added that we're just bringing to you guys, because the next stage of, potentially for some of you is to start to generate, hey, a fellow Canadian there, Tom Campbell, is to generate revenue. And that's kind of what Cam has been incredibly successful at, but it wasn't always that way, I'm sure, as you're going to hear. And so if you have a question, just post it in the comment. And if it's relevant to what we're currently talking about, we'll just slide it in. It would be great if it wasn't my questions, but rather more surfacing what you guys had in mind for Cam. And then Cam is going to answer them to the best that his experience will allow him to do that. And it's kind of like juggling, right? So Cam's just going to sit there focused on giving you guys the best results possible. And I'm going to juggle, kind of keep this going. Hose heads up there in Canada. Eh? Oh, Strange Brew. Okay, we got to show this one. If you guys don't know what Strange Brew is, it is a classic piece of Canadiana cinema, and we'll hide that because
80s movie, right?
Yeah. Bob and Doug McKenzie. Eh? It's great. So, anyways, I appreciate that comment.
By the way, he's getting way more Canadian as he meets other Canadians. He never says "a" when it's just me and him.
No, never. No, it's when the Canadians come out of the, whatever. The ice huts. Okay, man, we're just going to jump in. If you got a question, post it in the comment there. And, we're going to start off kind of how you got started, quick tools and material rundown, your first piece that you created. Then we're going to get into the commission side of things and kind of learning from your failures. And at the end of this, the hope for myself and Cam is that you guys are able to be inspired to go and get your first piece of woodworking furniture sold. I mean, that's the goal, I think, is to help you along that journey. So, Cam, why don't we start off with just kind of an easy question for you? How did you get started in woodworking?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming to this. This is awesome to actually have a smaller one of these. When I do these on my main channel, they just turn chaotic in the comment section. So actually having like 40, 50 people that want to be here and want to talk about this specifically, I think it's awesome. So I appreciate everybody showing up. Even saw somebody from Tokyo, which is pretty crazy. So anyway, yeah, how I got started with woodworking was I just had a job that I had a pretty good schedule. I worked 7 days. I was gone. I was out of town for 7 days, and then I'd come back and I had 7 days off, and I just needed something to fill my time. So I just thought I'd start woodworking, and I pretty quickly realized I couldn't buy everything I wanted, just losing money. So I was like, maybe I should try to actually sell some of these pieces. So I had some time and I didn't have much skill. I didn't have many tools, but I just had a little bit of motivation, figured let's try to sell some stuff, but buy some more tools.
So that kind of leads into the second question is, where did you learn the skill if it was like something you were just starting off on? Because when people look at your portfolio now, for some people, it's pretty daunting.
It's funny, I still feel like I'm such like a poser, like an imitator in the space, because I was never classically trained. I to this day I couldn't cut a dovetail, you know, and I feel like all real woodworkers need to be able to hand cut dovetails and beautiful boxes. So there's so much that I can't do still, and I'm trying to get better. But I just learned by making bad stuff. Like, it was pretty embarrassing, some of the stuff that I made, and I just got a little bit better each time. And now I have some passable pieces, but I'm still trying to get better.
And when did you find time for that? Like, because when you were working, like, how did you fit that into your work schedule? Because maybe a lot of people are in the same boat, right?
Well, like I said, I had 7 days where I was at work, and then I had 7 days where I was literally at home. So I had what a lot of people unfortunately aren't going to have is, you know, I don't have kids, so I had more free time than most people. But it doesn't. I don't think it matters. It just means you'll be able to do a little bit less than I was able to do in those chunks of time. So I know people that do it after the kids go to bed. They have like an hour that they carved out. So it's different for everybody.
Okay, awesome. First question we're going to pull from the audience is Brian Jackson, and it's kind of where we're going to get into the tools and materials. So if you have a couple essential, as you guys are listening at home, if you have a couple of essential questions for Cam around tools, just fire them in there and we'll slide them in. What do you recommend a beginner woodworker should have in terms of tools?
It depends on what you want to make. It's so dependent. I mean, everybody's going to need a circular saw. You don't need a really high-end Festool one like I have, although I think they're great once you can justify the cost. As far as like a high-end tool, I really think a sander is probably one of the first expensive tools you should buy. But you'll realize pretty quick once you start going is, oh man, this job would be way easier if I had blank. And then just kind of start piecing those tools together, you know, bit by bit. I did a blog post a couple years ago on kind of like the 10 best tools to start with. And it's, you know, the table saw, the jointer, the sander, a couple, you know, a good set of chisels that they don't have to cost a lot of money. Some Narex chisels are good, but it just depends. You just keep building it up piece by piece.
And then as you're doing that and building up kind of like as you go, what would be like, I guess, and this is kind of like maybe a tough question to throw at you just off the cuff. Like how much would you need to be into it just to say, okay, you're functional in the shop? Like, just give people an idea.
So what kind of upfront cost, and saying I have zero tools, what's it going to cost me to start trying? I used to say $1,000. I mean, stuff's a little more expensive now, maybe 1,500 to 2,000, you know, to say if you're trying to convince your husband or wife, I want to start this hobby. I eventually want to try to make some money. I would like to pull out this much money. I would say, you know, minimum 1,000, maybe $1,500
to get started. And then when it comes to sourcing like wood, because I know for you, like that's a major cost in terms of material and build. So how do you know, like, you spend that, you know, X thousands of dollars on a piece over here? Like, how do you find that line?
You don't. People think they have to start out with the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 slab of wood like I might use. I mean, I still wouldn't buy that for like my own dining table. Probably it's just too much money. It's hard. You know, I looked around one of the first pieces. I wonder if it's in this slideshow that you put together here. Is our personal coffee table that I still have, and I got this beautiful piece of walnut on Craigslist that the guy's dad had cut and then the tree down in the 60s and slabbed it out. And he had this, it was just a great deal, a great stack of wood. And I bought it for $180. So, I mean, it was, wow, you know, what I would expect to spend about $1,200 for now that I got for $180. So you just look around and occasionally you can get deals.
And this is a great question from Luke. This is a bit further down the success path, but he's asking, when a client doesn't know what wood they want, what do you think about to guide them to the wood that's best for them? Like, how do you kind of pitch that? I guess.
Sure. I keep it super simple. I go, you know, do you like light, dark, or medium? And so then they say, oh, well, we don't want anything too dark. And I go, great. And then, you know, you have a couple of woods that you might like, whether that's maple, elm, white oak, something like that. And I don't mind showing them examples of things other people have built, as long as I'm very clear. Like, hey, this is a table that someone else did, but just as a guide for the color, is this in the right family? Is this along the right track? And they'll say, oh, maybe not that light. And you go, okay. And then you might show them a few other examples. But I just start with the color, and I always recommend hardwoods. I don't recommend building with pines or firs or things like that. So keep it in the hardwood family and just start with light, dark, medium. Then they might say, I like the dark, but I don't like the red tones in that walnut. You go, okay, well, now what if we had this color walnut? And then they go, oh yeah, maybe that.
And then are you just sending them pictures like they find online? I'm assuming at that point, as opposed to actual samples.
Yes, yeah. I'll usually keep it pretty broad at the start of whether it's pieces I built or pieces other people have built, and my portfolio is generally close to good enough size now that I don't have to go outside my own materials. But by the way, that was my first piece. That was remember that one because that was a disaster. That was
Wait, is this your first commission piece or your first
no,
piece
that was
sold?
my first epoxy table that didn't have anybody for it. And
Okay, good. We got questions for that. Okay, we'll hit that one.
Okay.
Perfect. That's perfect. We'll get to that. But we kind of because a lot of people might not be there yet. Maybe they purchased your course and they're getting closer to that stage. But what was the very first piece that you sold that wasn't for you?
It wasn't that one. I can tell a story of that one if you want, or we can get to the question you just asked.
This is coming up. So we'll get to this. It'll be like in 2 questions down the road.
Okay, so the commission piece was
that being said, this is your YouTube channel. So
no, this is good. I like we'll follow the flow.
Okay.
So I'd actually built that piece that we just showed there, and I took some good pictures of it. It was not very nice. And by the way, these prices that are up there now, those are not the prices that I necessarily sold the piece for. Those are the prices of past items in my portfolio that if someone wanted it today, what I would charge. And so I don't want to come off as a fraud because I didn't even sell this piece because it wasn't nice enough to sell. But the photos looked good. And if someone called me today and said, I want this piece, this is what it would cost. So I want to make that clear with the audience.
Sure.
Does that make sense, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Okay. So I made this piece as kind of I'm going to try to make an epoxy table and put some photos up. And I had a lady reach out and she says, I like that piece, but I want dark wood. I want walnut and I want it with black epoxy. And I said, I didn't say this to her. I thought to myself, I was like, black with walnut, that's going to look ugly. That's too dark. It's too dark. And, with a dark brown with the black, but it was almost $1,000 commission for this entryway table. And so,
and this is your first piece that you've ever done for anybody else? Is that correct?
The first piece that someone ordered from me and paid me in advance.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so I was like, all right, whatever they want, $1,000, that's great. I can buy some tools with that. And I did it and I put it together and I got it built and I was like, this is beautiful. Like the black with the black epoxy with the walnut became like my signature and like launched my YouTube and did everything else. And it was because I listened to this customer that I thought had a bad idea.
So your first kind of commission piece turned out to be something that was extremely beneficial in terms of your path to kind of where things are today.
I need to find her. I should look her up and thank her for that.
Absolutely, you should, man. We got Mike Rockland's got a great question. Kind of, when you're going from building your skill set, and just kind of doing stuff for your house, and then you get your first commission piece. When did you decide to go from a hobby to a business?
Yeah, Mike, that's a good question. I think that there's some misconceptions about one or the other, and it doesn't have to be. I don't like risk. I think why have undue risk if I don't have to? So I just kept it as a hobby that was a side business. And then that hobby business, or whatever we're going to call it, it got a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger. And I kept going for a long time because I was like, I still have the time to do both. Why do I want to risk, ending my career that I worked so hard to get to, my other career, by saying I can only do one or the other? And eventually, when I was making as much or more selling furniture and then the YouTube and that type of stuff, where I was like, well, I'm at least going to be doing as well as I was in my old job. So that was when I actually decided to stop doing my career and officially go all in on the business, when I was making a little bit more doing that than I was at work.
Yeah, I'll echo that, man. When you kind of, Mike, if this helps at all as well, what Cam said's bang on, and it's also echoes my story as well. And, there's something to be said for building it up as you go. and it takes the stress out of it, the financial stress. Like a lot of people, what tends to happen, and I'm not speaking in the woodworking business, but in the business world, they'll get this idea, they'll get passionate about it, and then they'll shift gears too abruptly. They'll actually go 90 degrees into something new, and it's just not there yet financially. And so you get stressed out, and it might not come to fruition because of that stress. And you might go back to the job that you were at before because it didn't work. So I couldn't agree more. Building it up over time and then transitioning as it becomes a financial fit for your family and your lifestyles.
And keeping everything where you're not financially crippled if something doesn't go right. If I had a project that went bad, and I've told customers I haven't had any really big refunds, but if if something didn't go right, I have the comfort level of saying, okay, send it back and I'll refund your $4,000. If you have your mortgage due and you don't have any other income, that's a big, like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can do that. But that confidence in that customer service helps the business and keeps everything going, where you're always willing to do things right for the customer. Whereas if you're really financially strapped, they can sense that, and it just does not exude the confidence that someone wants with high-end custom furniture.
Absolutely. Great advice, man. Hopefully, Mike, that helped you out. We got another question. We're just going to backtrack just a little bit. Is from Lev, I believe. Any wood recommendations for your first project? Any certain hardwoods easier to work with?
I'd say most of the domestic hardwoods that are, fairly common, the oaks, the elms, the walnuts, the maples, those are all good medium hardwoods. If you start getting into some of the really exotic, super hardwoods, they're kind of a pain to work with. If you get into some of the softer woods, the poplars, the redwoods and the firs and pines, those you don't want to work with. So I'd say stick to something in the elm, oak. If you guys don't know, Janka is how they rate how hard wood is. It's a scale, and it's like, I think a balsa wood is like 200 and ebony's like 4,000. So if you want to like stick in that like 800 to 2,000 range of Janka, that's a good range for hardwoods in my opinion. As far as the project, it's tough. I think it's, I know people that make six-figure incomes selling like just batching out cutting boards, and not even nice ones, just like ones they sell to realtors with their initials lasered on there. And these guys make great livings doing that. And I would have never thought to do that. And other people make end grain cutting boards. Other people make tables like I do. So just try a few things, see what you're good at, see what your audience responds to or what your customers respond to. And don't go too financially overboard on any one. Don't say, I got to buy a $10,000 slab and then I'm going to be the slab guy. Start small and see what you're good at.
Okay, well, let's hear this story, man. Let's hear it.
Okay, so this was probably 2016-ish. I was not the first person to make epoxy tables. I had seen some people do it online, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to try that. So I went to the hardwood store, and I bought alder because it was super cheap.
So is this when where are you at with your other job in 2016? You're still working it, right?
Yeah, I'm only like, I started that job in 2015.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think before this, I'd made a barnwood table and I'd sold it for like $300 and paid like $150 out of pocket to ship it. So it wasn't a huge money maker.
So I think it's another question I had there, but this is timely, and we'll get back to the Grande Ronde resin table. Which we'll get. I want to ask you about your naming conventions too. But do these projects cash flow? Like, should somebody be prepared not to make money as they're taking this leap into building projects for other people?
Yeah, I mean, you need to be prepared to lose whatever you're spending on your first couple projects. You don't know that you're going to be able to sell it. There's no guarantee. But we're breaking away from the story. We got to finish the story. Then you can ask me a question.
Okay.
Anyway, so bought some West System boat epoxy. Bought some dye. Mixed it up in a big, I don't know, gallon little bucket type of deal. Poured it in there. Way too thick. You're only supposed to pour like a 1/16 of an inch, and I poured the whole like inch thick table. It started smoking. I thought it was going to catch on fire. I didn't know anything about epoxy at the time. Didn't know you couldn't just use any old epoxy. So ended up having to break all of that out. I redid it. And I also did I didn't seal the wood. This is all stuff that's in the workshop that you guys have seen now. And so that you can't see it so much in the pictures. I don't know why they didn't show it so well, but I stained the wood really badly. And so that streak where that crack that kind of goes up to the northwest there, or the northeast.
That one there? Sorry, you can't see my cursor. That's
No.
of zero help. Okay, hit it.
Anyway, that stained it really blue. And when I was sanding it, I was like trying to sand out the color of it. And I realized I was putting a big dish in the table. So
Oh my goodness.
everything went bad about that one. And I finally got it together and put some legs on it. And the photos somehow could trick people into thinking that it looked good. And I finally was like, I can't sell this. This is bad. So I ended up throwing it in the actually physically throwing it away, which maybe I'll regret not keeping it.
And so like obviously you go underwater on a project like that.
Yeah, I mean, but that was like, I don't know, $70 in wood and probably $50 of epoxy. So it's not the end of the world. You know, I didn't want to do that with a $1,000 slab.
Yeah.
But the good thing out of that was, like I said, is I got some pictures up, got a nice proper background and their backdrop for the photos, and then I got that next commission from it. So, in the end, it kind of paid for itself.
Nice. We have a question here. Why tables and desks? Do you like recommending or making smaller items as well? So why tables and desks? Like, it kind of seems to be your forte.
Yeah. One, like desks, I just personally really enjoy desks. They're big enough that you can kind of have some fun with it, but not so big that they're physically hard for me to move around. The bigger tables, I don't even like making them. There's so much work just physically moving them and flipping them. Excuse me. I do like smaller ones. I did a YouTube video maybe 6 months ago where I wanted to see if I could build something and not use any of my social media and actually sell it for roughly $1,000 profit. And so I bought some walnut and I built 2 end tables, and I was pretty proud of them. They looked good. And I put them for sale on a Alias Etsy page didn't mention anything, didn't show any pictures during the process on any of my social media. And I put them up for, God, I think it was, I should look. I think it was $1,100 because I was into them about $100 or so. Don't quote me on these numbers, but I remember I think I profited about $950 from this, and they sold in like a week. So that was my way of showing, like, hey, you guys can do this. You don't have to have a big business. I didn't have a website. All I had was an Etsy page.
And that cash flow. So, I mean, there you go. Like, I mean, that's inspiration, right there to kind of put yourself out there. And that's a great.
That was to Tom's point. That was a pair of small items that I sold. I felt was pretty good profit margins and definitely worth my time.
I would encourage anybody as well, my wife and probably many of our spouses or people we know hang out on Facebook Marketplace to pick up furniture and stuff like that. And I've seen a lot of local woodworkers advertising products that they make. And one thing that I definitely, as I'm putting this together, and I just want for the audience listening, like from a sales and marketing perspective, I'm curious if you knew what you were doing, or ultimately if it's something that just kind of was naturally habitual for you. But your naming conventions around your products, like if you look at like some of these, it's like the Horsetail Falls end table. So you're not just saying like end table or coffee table, and some of these are like St. Helens coffee table, and it's like what that does is the Twilight coffee table / wall art, Black Butte coffee table. These naming conventions separate your work, and I'm just curious, was that intentional, or maybe speak into that a bit?
Yeah, I would say it was mostly unintentional, if I'm being honest.
Nice, man.
I think the reason why I actually did it was when I started to build up my portfolio, it was easier for me when customers could say, I liked your Black Butte coffee table, or I didn't like the Black Butte one, but I liked this one. And it was just easier for me to have conversations with people when they could be citing, when I knew exactly what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. And so I never really thought about it from the branding perspective at the time anyway. It was just a way that I was easier for me to communicate. Hey, there's my first that was that first commission.
Oh, right there, the Opal Creek.
Yep. And if you're curious, the most of these were rivers or streams from Oregon. I just got on Google and was like, Oregon streams and rivers.
So what that does from a marketing perspective, if you're listening at home, and kind of what Cam actually touched on there, it's something that's taught, in Marketing 101, and it's called the unique mechanism. And it separates your product or your offering from the noise. And so instead of just saying like coffee table or end table or dining room table, it's like giving it these unique names. Speaks to quality. It speaks to handmade craftsmanship. But you can't get it anywhere else. So like if you want to buy the Opal Creek console table, there's one place on the planet where you can get that. And that'll allow you to probably charge, I would have to think, a little bit more than just saying, table, right? Because tables can be from $50 to $5,000. And so I just found that interesting as I was going through this. The naming conventions you used were pretty unique. I would like to hear about your very first like big commissioned piece. Is that something that was there one that stands out, or was there a process that brought you to that place? Is there one in particular?
Yeah, it was. I should look up the dates on this to find that so I could remember exactly like when each order came through. But after I did that black epoxy, the one you just showed there, the Opal Creek, I felt like it wasn't a really long time after that. I had an interior designer that had found my Etsy page. I still don't think I had a website at this point. And she was, a Los Angeles interior designer, and she reached out for this client. And I'm like flattered and, all excited that I have this designer. And they wanted a 60-inch by 60-inch square dining table, and they had a base for it. So they wanted this black resin with walnut epoxy table, 60-inch by 60-inch. And I don't even remember how I came up with the price, but I told them it was going to be $5,000. And that was like all the money in the world to me at the time. And they said, okay. And then they kept like raising the size. They're like, oh, it'll be 61 and 62 and 63. And I was like, of course, like absolutely whatever you say. But what I didn't realize at the time is nobody has CNCs around here that are bigger than 60 inches. So like going 1 inch bigger made my life a nightmare. So that was like kind of a hard lesson for me. I way underpriced that thing, but I was pretty excited. I ended up buying my first planer, which is my first big tool purchase, first new tool I ever bought.
Cool. And so let me just show another picture here. These are great, man. Honestly, these broken stream resin table. There's only one place on the planet you can get that.
I will say, if I can offer one piece of advice to you guys, is take good photos. This is pretty early on, and I'm still proud of that photo. I think that I do have it up on my website right now. I'm sure that's where you got it from.
That's where I got it from. It's gorgeous, man.
And if you scroll through Facebook Marketplace or Etsy and you look at the photos, everything looks exactly the same. It's in someone's living room and an iPhone, and they just take a photo, and it looks horrible. And so I went to a lot of work to learn how to take good photos. And I think it really separates it when someone's scrolling through hundreds and hundreds of the same thing, and they're like, whoa, that one's cool.
And so this begs the question from Brian here. I've sold many projects. I don't have a website or great pictures of my stuff. Cam is recommending that you get that. Figure out how to do it. I could imagine it's a bit labor intensive, but at the end of the day, this is part of the learning process and kind of value stacking your skill set. But how do I advertise my products? Etsy, Instagram, or YouTube? If you had to pick one, where would you go?
Etsy.
Yep. Hands down.
Yeah, Etsy. As far as selling, the other stuff is good to promote your sales thing, but you need to have a way to sell it. And Etsy is remarkably good at getting new people's stuff in front of other people. I'm always amazed at like how you can just be a guy like I was and put a pallet table on there and someone will see it and actually pay for it.
Yeah. This next question is from Keith, and it's coming in kind of as you're developing your business. Like, how do you price in your time? So like, let's say you're now doing this full time, or even as maybe a side hustle, but I think your story was a little bit unique in the sense that you did have widths of time that were open to you. But how do you, if you were to guess, how much do you think you were making per hour in the commission space?
It's if
With the ups and downs is the caveat
yeah,
to
yeah,
this
yeah. I
aspect.
think I wasn't great at tracking my hours. My wife, who's like a hardcore business lady,
Hmm.
she like got me an app and she's like, okay, when you go out there, push start, and then like it'll track this. And I'm like, okay, okay. Then I never did it.
Hmm.
So I would highly encourage you to do that because I think it's important. So that said, I don't have numbers on exactly what it was. And a lot of my stuff is I just sit there with my arms crossed, like staring at a piece, like how do I want to orientate it? And of course that's labor, but is it really labor? Because, maybe I could have spent half the time doing that I did. So um I think, starting around the like $60 range and then working up to like maybe 150 an hour of like bona fide labor is good. Um but then there's also times like, do you count the time driving to the woods,
Hmm.
place? What if you find it on your first trip versus what if you find it on your 10th trip?
Hmm.
It's tough to some projects I probably crushed it, and other projects I was probably, made 20% that I did on that as the other project.
I'm guessing the labor of love comes into this. Like it's something would you be doing this if you didn't have to do it? Like let's say,
Oh yeah.
there's $100 million in your bank account, and I think that's probably, more than, well, you're an expensive part of the world, but I mean, I'm assuming that's enough to live off of.
Yeah,
And
no,
this would still be something you would tackle.
yeah, we were talking about that with some family friends recently is, just talking about what you do, or like, do you like what you do, or do you want to retire? And I was like, I don't know, like I'm doing the same thing I do anyway, except maybe I wouldn't be like stressing about a deadline.
Mhm.
I'd still be out there tinkering and building stuff.
Yeah. That's where I'm at too, I think, in life, man. Like I wake up excited to kind of get after it, and
Mhm.
you need to be.
Yeah.
Going back to the photos, we have a question from Troy. What do you use to take photos with? Is it an iPhone, but with a much better backdrop and studio lighting? Like to get these pictures, I'll just put a couple more pictures up here of
Yeah,
product.
if you
But
I think it's still up on my page. If you look way back on my YouTube page, I actually did a photography tutorial, and it was like my worst performing video ever because I'm apparently not a photographer. But I do feel like I did a good job explaining what I do. This is called light painting, and it basically enables you to use relatively cheap gear. I learned that like photography lights are really expensive,
yeah.
and so this is actually done with a pretty cheap DSLR. It was like a Canon T3i, which you can buy for probably 150 bucks on Craigslist. And then you use a flashlight to light it. You like
Hmm.
do a really long shutter speed. So you do like a 20-second shutter and you paint it with the light. You use a flashlight and you get this really cool effect. And so that's what I did, light painting. You look up some better tutorials than I'm explaining here, but that's how I did almost all my photos for years.
There's one in particular that it's kind of like the bread and butter. This one right here. Just show this. Um, this one right here. Like that shot is gorgeous.
So that was hard because that table was bigger than my paper. I have a black photography backdrop, but it's only I think 9 feet wide, and that table was over 9 feet wide. So I had sheets hung up in my garage over my garage doors right there, and then I had sheets on the ground, and I did that light painting, and it turned out pretty cool.
Cool. We are going to transition a little bit into kind of learning from failures, which I'm super, super keen on. As after I've gone into my 40s, I have a nice repertoire of failures that have served me well in this kind of stage of life. And one thing that you can get if you're in the epoxy course and you're watching YouTube and digesting Cam stuff is how to avoid those mistakes. But there's some that I think, at least in my case, my thick-headedness, I had to go through to kind of come out the other side. Things that I would have liked to avoided, but yet are incredibly essential to the process of growth. And so when it comes to building a woodworking business, what is, and this is a tough question, so if it takes a minute to think about, I can show some pictures or something. But what is something that is absolutely necessary that sucked? that you can kind of prep the audience for? Look at this is coming, but you gotta push through it.
I think just getting out of your comfort zone with a
Mhm.
project is eventually, once you
Yeah.
get enough orders and enough, enough things to do to keep you busy, you can start turning orders away. But I didn't early on. I didn't like saying no to things, and that $5,000 order that I got was, first of all, it wasn't enough money. Um, and they were such a pain to deal with. I didn't know how to actually like put my foot down and tell people, like, you know, diplomatically, is that a word? Like how to respectfully tell them they're wrong and this is how it's going to be, or like why they don't want it this way. So I was saying yes to absolutely everything she said, and I was doing it for too cheap. And by the time I was done, I was just like, oh my God, I never want to do that again. But
Mhm.
I don't regret it. It's all part of the
Yeah.
process. And so just getting out of your comfort zone, and you're gonna have some hard lessons. And I bet one of those lessons is gonna be taking on the wrong customer. I've actually never had a bad customer. Like, I didn't enjoy my time with her, but I haven't had any like refuse to pay type of customers. But I have friends that have, and
Mhm.
they tell me like these early conversations are really indicative, and I can see it coming, and they're like, "Oh, but I need the money. Oh, I got these bills coming up," and they
Yeah.
take it and end up regretting it. So I think that's something that most people are gonna have to learn for themselves, because you can't turn
Yeah.
down. It's hard to turn down money, I should say, not you can't, but eventually you'll learn it's not worth it.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, man. The opportunity's in front of you, and all you got to do is say yes, and your alarm bells are going off. But that payday is coming, and that speaks to what you're talking about earlier about building up that revenue, so you don't have to rely on that
Exactly.
as a make or break for your business, right? So we're going to go on a bit of a treasure hunt here. So Peter R says, answer Mike Rockland's question. So we're going to
Okay.
go to Mike Rockland's question, and it says this. We've already had Mike on here already. You're getting two, Mike. Would you still have a viable business without YouTube revenue?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mike. I Right now, I mean, I've been giving projects away. I'm very unreliant on the income from my furniture sales right now. I've been fortunate enough that I can actually afford to give these things away. We have
Mhm.
that coffee table I told you about, Adam, that we're going to do for that giveaway.
Yeah.
Um, I could probably get around $10,000 for this table that we're going to be giving away next month or the month after that. And to me, it's worth more to have that, as it's not that I'm doing it completely out of the good of my heart. We're going to generate some leads and hopefully get some, new followers, new subscribers, all that type of stuff. But I also like money, but it's not the most important thing from my furniture sales. So if I lost YouTube, if I get canceled, if my past catches up to me and all of a sudden I'm canceled and I have no more YouTube
What? Whoa. We won't unpack that now. Sorry. Keep going.
uh, the YouTube income goes away, I would have to kind of fire up the furniture aspect of it, and then I would have a viable business. But I would have to really get back into that and get back into talking to the customers and trying to generate those leads and those sales. But yeah, definitely.
Cool, man. Awesome. Well, I hope that's inspiration, to anybody out there. You don't need this massive following that Cam has, because it was viable before he started YouTube. It just transitioned his opportunities a bit. Okay, so in terms of the business side of things, something you absolutely hate to do, yet an essential part of the process. What is something that, for you anyways, that's like, oh man, this sucks, but I know I have to do it, and you kind of
Uh,
can't even outsource it.
uh,
I'll hold your feet to the fire with that. You can't outsource it. What's something that you
oh well,
hate?
I was gonna go a different route and talk about just like the moments that I have to be like super honest with some customers with some bad news.
That's great.
Where
Let's hear about
um, I got a story that you guys don't even know yet because I haven't put a video out on it, but I have some customers that have been waiting for over a year they made a 3 table purchase, and they live overseas. They live in it's going to Italy, but I think they actually live somewhere else in Europe. But they've been super nice and super patient. A couple months ago, I was about 90% finished with the tables, and I just got a kind of a weird feeling because I had a bad experience with the previous table, and I checked the moisture on them, and all 3 tables were ruined because the wood
that.
was not properly dried, and I didn't check it initially. And so I had to go to them and just be honest, and it sucked, and just be like, hey guys, like if you want your money back, I understand, but I know you've been waiting for a year and that's not good for you either. And we had to have this long conversation, and they were great. And I didn't want to do it, but it's just easier just to be honest and kind of rip the Band-Aid off.
Good, man. That's got to be a hard place. I mean, do you get like, do you get the butterflies in the stomach when you have to make that call, or is it like,
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, someone's got all this money in you, and they've been waiting, and they've been nice, and they couldn't have done anything different on their end. And your job is to be the professional and to not have these situations come up. And I let them down, and then I messed up. I should have checked the wood, which is a mistake I won't make again. Which good lesson for you guys. Check the moisture of your wood. I bought this from my regular wood supplier that they check it too, but it slipped through the cracks. And I'll be doing an upcoming video on this project. And the owner actually came out. He's like, dude, what can I do? And I'm like, you can come talk to me on camera and explain this. Like, because we can at least try to turn this into content. And so he was great, and he apologized and said it was all his fault and all that, but still it doesn't give the customer what they wanted. So we're working on it, and it's another 6 months for him to wait for the next batch of wood that we're going to use. But
okay. We got two questions, and it kind of, this is from Peter, and I'll show you the second one here as well. Do you get paid 100% upfront, or how do you handle the payment? Do you do a down payment upfront, 100% upfront, or is it a case by case basis?
Yeah, good question. I do 50% down, 50% on completion before shipping.
Say that again, sorry.
So 50% upfront, and then the remaining 50% upon completion, but before I ship it.
Okay, so write that down, and that generally serves you well. Is there anything? Would you tweak that, or is that
no? I've done that since the start, and I think the customer understands that's pretty fair. I did have one commission. It's like a $32,000 table, and the guy, he was just this like freaking crack up. I actually really enjoy like talking to this guy, but he's an older guy, and he's like, and he knew it was going to be like 2 years before this thing was done. And he's like, I could die. He's like, you want 50%? He's like, before this? And he's like, yada, yada. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know. Like, how about 10 grand down? I'm like, fine. Like I just want enough. I want enough that they're serious and they're not going to get bored and go somewhere else.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So this question is from Reanimated Woodworks in the context of prospect leads, customer leads, client leads. You mentioned really talking to those customers and generating those leads. So for maybe it's commission pieces or pieces that you want to sell. Is there a process? Now I know it's different now, but when you were first starting out, was there more of a process behind that?
It would just be more of the ones that had ordered repeat things, the designers and the contractors would be just keeping up with them more, kind of staying in front of them, like maybe being more eager. Like, when I talk to them now, I'm honest with them and just say, I don't take a ton of commissions anymore. But what do you got? If it's something that I think can make a great video, then I might do something. But staying in front of them. You don't want to hound them, but just, you could send them a Christmas card or any Christmas email type of deal. Just seeing your name in front of them is like, oh yeah, like maybe he's can do this project for us.
Yeah. So do you go like, would you go after designers and people? Like, is there like interior design people that you would present to?
Yeah. So if I was really going to double down and only be a furniture business again, I would really make a concerted effort to go get in front of the architects and design firms, which is probably a pretty good tip for you guys. Is once you get going, once you have a portfolio, if you can just, however it is, it's going to be different for each one. Whether it's showing up and saying, I'd like to show my projects to you and see if we could work together in the future. And it probably won't generate business that day, but now they're like, oh, hey, we're doing a restaurant. This guy seemed cool, so let's call him.
Good. Okay. This question here is a good one. This will be the last one we'll kind of take from the audience because we're just running a bit thin on time. But Keith asked, what's your typical lead time that you would tell a customer, let's just say a medium-sized standard table?
I used to, when I was making furniture frequently, I was going with 6 months, and then it went out to a year. And now I haven't taken a new commission in quite a while. So last time I told a customer it was a year, which has been quite a bit longer than that for this project.
So is that something though, like with timeframes, is that reasonable for like somebody who's in the design space, or is it they might need it sooner than that?
Oh, I get requests, or when I was doing the commissions a lot more, I get requests all the time where like, oh yeah, we have this, we need these 4 tables and we need them in like 3 weeks, maybe 4. And so you just kind of like, no. And so I lost lost, but I had a ton of designers that would come to me with, these like preposterous lead times, like 3 weeks, for this big custom stuff. Most private individuals that have come to me are very used to these types of timelines, which, the Italian couple that I screwed up the 3 tables for, they just get it, like they're used to this custom stuff, and they know it takes long, and they know there's, hiccups that come along the way. So you'll find that the higher end customers are like the best customers because they're used to dealing with this type of stuff.
Yeah. Cool. I'm going to leave you with the big kind of closing overarching question. Yeah. And so if you have a pen or a pencil out there, go ahead and grab it.
What if I don't have a good answer?
You have a good answer. You have a good answer. That's
all right.
What is your big takeaway from your experience that you would like to share with your audience that they absolutely need to do to start a woodworking business?
I would say that you need to realize that you don't have to have a woodworking business to start a woodworking business. I think that people get paralyzed with what's my incorporation? What if someone sues me and I need to incorporate before I build my first end table? Yeah. Oh, wait, well, now I need to get my website. No. Now I need to get this going, and now I have to get a bookkeeper, and I got to do just build something.
Yeah.
Like it's like nobody's going to sue you. Nobody's going to take your house because their kid knocked over your end table. I shouldn't say that. Maybe someone's going to sue me now. But just start. Don't analyze it. Don't overthink it. Just start doing it, and you'll be bad at first, and that's okay. But don't wait for everything to be perfect, because then you'll never do it.
Yeah. Good advice, man. Well, I just want to, we got to wrap it up here because we're hitting the time wall, 45 minutes plus. I just want to thank everybody for A, your questions, B, for making the time. But for supporting what Cam does, like he puts, I talk to Cam regularly, and just the amount of effort he puts in to be able to service his community is really world class. And, there's a reason why he has 2 million followers on YouTube, subscribers on YouTube, because of that content. And he's meticulous about making sure that it serves you guys well. So Cam, I think myself, as well as everybody watching, we want to thank you for that, obviously. And I'll give you the hammer to kind of sign off here, and then we'll wrap it up.
Oh, appreciate that, Adam. I am constantly humbled by the fact that, anybody, would care to listen to what I have to say or watch my content. And I genuinely appreciate everything that you guys do and the support that you've done. And hopefully this can answer a few questions for you guys. And I'd like to do some more of these lives in the next couple months. So hopefully Adam will MC those, as long as, I guess, how did Adam do? Yeah. You guys
well done. I did well done.
He didn't. That was sent before. No, that was sent before I asked.
Nice job. Go Beavers.
Go Beavs. By the way, just saying, 10-win season.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. What was Oregon?
Have they played? I don't think they played their bowl game yet, but we beat Oregon, so it didn't matter. And so we're better
by 3 points, I think. Hey, needs more Adam. Okay, I'll take that one. There we go. Okay, needs more Adam.
But really, guys, I appreciate it, and hopefully we got to most of the questions answered. And stay tuned for the next one of these.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, bud. Okay, thanks, Cam. Thank you for watching. We're going to end it here. You guys have a great night. Take care.
Cheers.